Welcome, episode 661. Susan here.
Sarah here. I wish I had a longer name. Sarah Louise Meister Butler Rice.
That is your name. I don't know what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Multiple people would leave me that in comments and messages.
No.
And, yeah.
That makes me
Sarah
so happy.
Louise Meister Butler
It's
Rice.
catching on. Meister Butler.
Yeah, I love that I've just acquired those two just because. I feel like I should get at least Butler because I was there for your honeymoon, which was really just me and Susie going and doing research for.
Oh, yeah. Right. We went to Brazil, Sarah and I. Adam didn't come, so he missed out.
Yeah, missed out. It's fine.
He had it all worked out. Then he came home and we got preggers. So that was
sure
like
did.
truly like the last hurrah of that Brazil trip. And
so
we were in
fun.
bed by 10 every night.
It was so fun. We played so many games of Scrabble on that trip.
Yeah, we need to go on more vacations.
We sure do.
We're
We've
so
got
good
one coming
at it.
up. We're gonna see each other doing a little mini.
Yeah, that's
vacation
true.
soon.
It's
for
probably good
Susie's
that it's a mini.
stand-up comedy, which is probably airing like right when we're probably.
Let's see. This episode comes out on Halloween.
This is our Halloween episode.
I didn't realize, but it
Woo!
is.
That's so good. Halloween episode. This is so perfect because I have some spooky shit to talk about.
That's awesome.
I'm very excited.
I
Are
feel
you in
like there's a
Halloween?
real dearth of Halloween music. Like there's Monster Mash, and then of course the Thriller,
Yes.
discography.
Okay, I'm very glad that you brought this up, Suze, because we were driving in the car the other day, Eli and I, driving in the car. We were driving to a haunted, kind of like a haunted house, but it's outside. It's called, it's something really creepy. It's like the Fear Compound or Fear
Oh
something
God,
compound.
that is horrific.
Yeah, and it's really, the history of it is really spooky.
What?
It was a place that was developed in the 70s where they were it started in the 70s. They were going to study how bodies decomposed,
Oh,
but they lost their funding. And then there was some other things that happened. Like they somehow had to shut it down. So they shut it down. And then that area was then like creepy stuff happened. Like there was a plane crash and the remnants of the plane crash are still on the site.
oh man.
And then somebody bought it and turned it into a only open on Halloween around like this time of year, haunted, like
Forest?
haunted maze area, like a haunted house, but outside and they have like it
So
all
there
set
are
up like you
walls,
can
but
run
no
through.
roof?
Yes, like
Oh.
a maze sort of, and they have
Oh.
kind of like Not Scary Farm in California, where they have the people who dress up, or like Universal Haunted Horror Nights, or they have the people who dress up and scare you. Ooh, it was so fun. So we were driving there, and we wanted to get in like a scary mood, and so we were listening to some Halloween music, and I asked Eli what his favorite Halloween song was, and of course, Thriller comes up, and then I put on Psycho Killer by the Talking Heads, and he's like, "This isn't a Halloween music. This isn't Halloween music." And I go, "Yeah, okay, but it falls into the spooky theme,
Yeah, I agree.
songs with a spooky theme." Which
I don't
then,
know that
like,
song, but it sounds spooky.
Psycho Killer, kiss que say, better run,
Whoa.
run away. It's so good.
Okay.
Oh, ah. Yeah,
That's
like
what they do?
Susie, you're gonna love this. It's a great song. It's a really good song. It's like
Yeah.
80s.
Okay. But
Talking Heads,
that's
yeah.
it really, right? Monster Mash, Psycho Killer, Thriller. We need more.
There's
is what
some
I'm
new
saying.
ones. There's a new one.
Okay. what
There's a
is
new
it?
one that a woman on, I think she was like a TikTok artist, wrote that's called Witch, but she spells out witch and WITCH, and she, like, the lyrics are like, rumor on the street is that her apples are delicious, something, but her boyfriends say she's wicked or something like that. Her exes say she's wicked. And she says that witch stands for woman in total control of herself.
Oh my God, you love it.
She's a witch, a woman in total control of herself. It's a great song. It's really cute. So
Okay,
that's like
good,
new
good.
Halloween song.
Good,
I love
more
that.
of that. Love it, love it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
good. That's hard.
I think there's more that could go into the Halloween.
Yeah.
Everybody puts that Maxwell, like Somebody's Watching Me song
Yeah, I
on
do
like
like
every.
that.
Yeah.
Is
I bet
it
you.
Rock? I think his name is
Rockwell. I
Rockwell.
said the wrong thing. I
Yeah.
said the wrong name for sure.
Isn't it funny how
Guaranteed.
the only good part of that song is Michael Jackson's chorus?
You're totally right.
Poor
Yeah.
Rockwell. But,
Yeah.
he was, Barry Gordy's son, the head of Motown.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like he just got a record deal because his dad was running the show. So they really needed Michael to come in there.
Wow. That really talk about a little nepotism there.
Yeah.
Like, who are
Right.
gonna get to help you? Michael Jackson
Yeah,
is
we
gonna
got you.
sing. Oh gosh, that's crazy. That's really funny.
Okay, so yeah, no pressure to be spooky though.
Oh,
I mean,
Seuss,
you got
this could not be more perfectly timed. This was one of the stories I was going to talk about last week, but I was like, no, we got to dedicate a full long amount of time to this. Also, do you remember when I showed you that picture of that little spider that was joining me that one time we were recording? Still there.
Wow.
Still hanging out. Now we're buds, so we're cool.
Is there a
Everything's
web?
good. Not that I see.
How do you know it's the same one?
Right. How do I know if he's still alive?
It's probably a whole community of them.
Oh God! What if that don't now we're getting spooky. Okay, so last week I was talking about this story, and we needed more time to unpack it. The real history of Pavlov and his experiments.
Oh,
the
okay.
story about Pavlov that you think you know,
Yeah.
is not anywhere near the truth.
Wow,
There was
we've
a
been lied
great
to.
article that came and even the reason why we've been lied to is a story in itself as well. So there's a great article in the New York Times, I believe. No, I don't know. I think it's the New York Times. I know because I have it right here. That was called Drool, and it was written back in 2014 by Michael Spector. It's a great article. And in right about this time, maybe a little bit earlier, there is a researcher at Johns Hopkins who did a deep dive, and I'm talking like a 20-year deep dive on all of the scientific writings, all the journals, all the history of Pavlov. He wanted to know, what's this guy's name? His name's Daniel Todes. He did this whole history, and it is so different than what we actually know. Mm-hmm. And how we got so confused. So first of all, how we got so confused. In 1927, there was a article that came out in, I can't remember what magazine at the time, but somewhere. I think it was I don't know, I can't remember when it came out. But, and it was written by H.G. Wells. And it was a review of Pavlov's research that he wrote that was in Russian. Mm-hmm. And so H.G. Wells gets a hold of this paper that Pavlov wrote, and it's like any scientific paper. It's boring as fuck.
Yeah.
But H.G. Wells is science fiction-y writer, so he's I'm going to write all the cool stuff. So he describes him in this very poetic way. He describes Pavlov and he's this, beacon of light in the science community and blah, blah, blah. And also what H.G. Wells is basing this article on is the English translation of Pavlov's studies and Pavlov's work. Mm-hmm. We weren't so good at translating Russian at the time, turns out. So H.G. Wells writes this article. It becomes a great story in I don't know, the New York Times, something like that. Something that everybody's reading.
The TED Talk of the
totally
pre-TED
for
Talk
sure.
era.
Very colorful, very and B.F. Skinner reads it. And B.F. Skinner is inspired. He's this is amazing. This guy is originally B.F. Skinner was going to be an art student or something like that, or English student or like a writing student, something like that, but then reads this H.G. Wells article on Pavlov and is like, I got to change everything. I really want to study him. I want to study like conditioned response and like kind of expand on his work.
Good grief.
Turns out, and it wasn't until like recently, until this guy who was doing this research on Pavlov for this book and working at John Hopkins, and he did all this research, that we find out the actual truth about what Pavlov was up to. So first of all, never once did he ever use a bell and everything. We have the idea that, like, what is your idea? Like, if I were to say,
right.
okay, Pavlov, tell me a little bit about Pavlov's dogs. This is actually so, like, it was shocking to me because I was one of Pavlov's dogs for Halloween one year.
I remember.
Yes. So I was like, this is something that, like,
about.
I know about. Like, we talk about it in school. It's like something that's referenced all the time. It's taught in psychology. So what's your, like,
just
understanding?
The old standard, like that he was, he would ring the bell before he fed them. And then ultimately he determined that was causing salivation regardless of whether food was present, and the bell was triggering that response and all the...
And we developed conditional responses,
Yeah.
and that was like the word, and it was the whole thing. Turns out conditioned response was a terrible translation, and they translated that word. It was actually conditional response and wasn't even used in the same way. But how he actually tested this, what he was really interested in studying was the effects of eating on the pancreatic system, the gastric system, the saliva glands, and the pancreas. And how he did this with dogs is he removed the esophagus of the dogs in the lab that he used, created a hole in their throat, and when the dogs would eat, the food would fall out of the hole in their throat and wouldn't make it into their stomach. And then he would place these other holes throughout the digestive system. I should say, like, with the big time, like, if you are sent, like, get ready for what I'm about. And this is a spooky episode. I did warn you with
it's
that.
already terrible.
It's terrible. He placed these holes that they called fistulas, which is like a disgusting word.
The only other time I've heard that word is like with female genital mutilation. Like, when women leak urine, then because of like a botched. Sarah's face.
Gosh, like it's all gross. So he similar holes placed further along the digestive system, and then he would attach those holes to tubes that would allow him to collect and measure any of the gastric juices that came out.
No.
And then it got worse because he was like a mad scientist. He had this whole idea that if dogs were unusual in their production of, like, anything was different, then we needed to keep them alive. So he would continuously do these operations to, like, maim and then fix these dogs. And they became just like gastric juice factories where he would, like, have this harnessed crossbeam and then attached a container by a tube coming out of these fistulas. And it's like the most disgusting experiment you could possibly imagine. No one talks about that. We're basically glorifying and not one time was there a bell or anything like that involved. He did end up using a metronome later, and he studied how they would change based on, like, the different, like, beats of a metronome. But there was no bell.
Why would we have thought there was? How would he have discovered what we think he discovered without the bell or something?
Because of this really bad H.G. Wells story that was in the New York Times. So, like,
he really didn't even discover what we think he discovered?
He was a big advocate for the scientific method at a time when the scientific method wasn't something that's something you actually had to advocate for. He was really big on the repetition of experiments over and over. But in this the article's title is Drool, and it was really good. I can't remember where it is. Maybe it's I'll find it. But it's written by Michael Spector. I made sure to write that down at least, to give him credit, because it was a great article, and it talks about how this also coincided when Lenin took over in Russia and was getting rid of a lot of the scientists and making it controlling basically how knowledge was funded and how science was funded. And so he was a scientist that was lucky to even get his scientific works published and any money and funding for this at the time. He ended up reaching out to the United States. But I think it was the timing, the age of science fiction, a misinterpretation and what do you call it?
Communication?
Translation, a poor translation of Russian text.
Wow, I wish I had a hype person like those ones.
Right?
Right?
Oh my God. Talk about a nice reframe.
Right?
For goodness sakes. Yeah,
Good
he didn't use a
grief.
bell. He didn't use anything like that.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
a disappointment.
Yeah, I wonder. Well, and he ended up winning a Nobel Prize in medicine and psychology
All right.
in
Well, good for him then.
1904, but it wasn't for anything related to the conditional response or conditional reflex. It was for his research in
Okay, so he's no
saliva.
slouch.
No, he's no slouch. But this to me, this seemed like, it reminded me a lot of when we read the book The Lobotomist's Wife, and we learned about the history of the lobotomy and how that guy was just, in a way,
Kinda
like a mad,
monster.
and kind of like a mad scientist, all hopped up on his own findings, and this feels very similar, where he would just try to keep the same animals alive, to any extent, and there's tubes attached to them. This sounds like a straight up fucking horror film.
Dang.
And there are so many of the major scientific, I don't know, what do you would call the greatest hits, these are the pillars of, and when we really look at it, fucking, what's his name was all hopped up on coke the whole time, Freud, that guy was a cokehead,
Right.
When,
I mean,
this guy's basically doggy Frankensteining people over here.
And when I think about the ways that people can become fixated on words in the Bible that they think mean a very specific thing.
Yes.
And then you think about the way that translation works and how imprecise it can be and how unreliable it can be.
Yes.
It just makes me crazy whenever you have somebody who is a believer of biblical inerrancy and, their specific narrow way of interpreting text. It's so complicated and imprecise.
Right. It's one person's idea. Yeah, it was some Russian word that for a conditional reflex that was poorly translated into conditioned response. And it was the title of the paper. It was a review. Oh, Times Magazine. That's it. It was in Times Magazine, the original article that H.G. Wells wrote.
Times or Time?
Times.
Oh, okay.
The old, I think an old one. Well, that's what it says, at least in this article, Times, I would imagine that, and it was in the New Yorker. That's where I read this. The article is called Drool from the New Yorker, written by Michael Spector.
I mean, good
and
update.
it's a long article, but it is a really, really good one. It talks about, what was going on at the time and how this information kind of got buried, and how we just kind of glorify these, people who are looked at as like the founding fathers of psychology.
Right.
And so much of our medical history is based on fucking torture and
like
really
mythology too. Like these
fucked up shit.
Well, I'll tell you what is not effed up, SHIT. And that is Julie, which we love, emergency contraception. I am just in love with this, and I'm so glad that they've partnered with us because
This is so great.
I love empowering you guys to have what you need. This product, Julie, stops your body from releasing an egg using the same active ingredient as Plan B. So essentially, Julie works by preventing or delaying your ovulation. With no egg, there's no fertilization and therefore no pregnancy, and it's no risk to future fertility. And one thing I really wanted to emphasize is that one thing that makes them really great is Julie offers a digital community. So you have like an online chat option available on their website where you can talk to a doctor if you have any questions. You don't have to like start Googling and then next thing you know, you think you're dying or whatever.
Right. Don't do that.
Yeah, it is such a great service, and it can be very empowering for people that have questions and want to make sure they're doing everything correctly and have all the information they need. And it's FDA approved. Morning after pill stops pregnancy before it starts. Okay? If you can go to juliecare.co to learn more or find Julie at your nearest Walmart today. That's juliecare.co, C-O, to learn more. Legal in all 50 states. You don't need an ID or a prescription or a credit card to get it. So there you go.
Great.
Love it.
So great. We're giving people options.
Yeah.
When options are being taken away.
Yes. Love it.
So,
Julie, we love you.
Yes. All of our listeners named Julie are going to just like that you just did that.
They should take that and make it their ringtone or
Exactly.
something. Julie,
I was
we
thinking
love
the same thing. I was like, just cut that. Okay. More information, fun stuff. So this is all, I think, equally as terrifying.
Oh, no.
Maybe. There was a new study, 3 studies actually, about gamers or people who identify as gamers. Turns out gamers more prone to racist, sexist, and misogynistic behavior.
The least surprising study ever.
Surprising study.
Yeah, I just read
Thoughts?
about how it's just obvious. And I read one in Scientific American about how when they are playing and they know that the character that they can choose is a gay character, this is fictional, people, they are far less likely to choose it. And then when they do choose it, they usually don't last very long because all the other players use slurs and homophobic language directed at them in a fictional game of cartoons, you idiots.
That's
so sad.
And that's how I think female characters are used on there.
Yeah.
Like that it's really upsetting. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting in this article is they talked a lot about, the author talked a lot about gamer identity and how one of the things that they did when they were conducting the research is, and this shows how twisted it is like people in the community can't even agree on what the term gamer is, where some people think it's like, oh no, that's only people who use PC games. Some people are like, oh no, that's only people who are on multiplayer online games. Like, so they gamer identity seems to be even something that people get all worked up about. So, and when they were conducting the studies, they left it with no operational definition. They were just like, if you identify as this in any way,
like, we don't want to get involved.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And so one of the things that I thought was really interesting is they talked about what happens. What is it about gaming, like what's going on that makes it so it becomes this, I don't know, more extreme thing.
Okay.
And they talk about this concept called identity fusion, which I had never heard of before, but I thought it was so interesting. It's when an identity becomes almost the defining trait of a person and something that pervades all aspects of that person's life. And so we all have we have kind of an individual identity and a social identity. You know, I'm Sarah, the podcaster, and Sarah, who is on The Real World. But I'm also a therapist and a reader and a
plant lady
and a girlfriend, and they're separate. They're like social identities are separate from our identity, our individual identity. And what happens is the person's social identity becomes fused with their individual ones. You see this sometimes with people in the military, where they go from being, in this example, they wrote Doug the father and Doug the soldier, who were two different things. And then something happens where it becomes indistinguishable, where it's harder to tell the difference between who, say, Doug the soldier and Doug the father would be.
Is Doug the father considered an individual identity? Or is that one of the... Okay. So it's like more personal stuff versus more like outward facing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when those get fused, what happens?
They're more susceptible to extreme pro-group behavior. They're more susceptible to like the ideas that they're more like extreme beliefs, or that it is kind of a gateway towards maybe even radicalization. And it then promotes, you see more exclusion than inclusion. And it's almost, in a way, like it's the breakdown of the individual for the group. You know, if you think of like that in the sense of like a military way.
Religion, for sure.
Religion, yes. Yeah. Anything where your individual ideas are not as important as the group think. And that makes people susceptible to extreme pro-group behaviors. And extreme pro-group behaviors are rarely like that.
They're not usually good news.
They're not usually good.
So are you trying to tell me that people that are more inclined to have this happen enjoy gaming more, or that gaming can produce this effect?
Gaming can produce that.
Oh, wow.
That gaming, because the identity of a person becomes, I'm a gamer, and what that community, how they engage with that community and what that community represents for them. They did see a difference in what games they played. Like Call of Duty had this more than Minecraft.
Yeah,
so
right.
Surprises no one. But,
yeah. Holy heck.
Yeah.
And I mean, well, to what extent do you think the existing demographics reinforce this? So obviously there's far more men that game than women. There's, I think in that article I read, it said they are also tend to be white. So they tend to be white, cis, straight men. Yes. So then do you think that is just something that encourages this fusion?
Ooh,
is there something about those guys? Like, I know, but just like...
Well, guess. I think what they describe... Right. What they described... But just guess. Give me a theory. What the authors called it a double-edged sword. That what happens is they find a community, which is a positive thing.
Yes.
But then through that community are introduced to toxic and hateful speech.
Yes.
And then, like, worst case scenario, it creates or like may lead somebody to be lured into embracing these more extreme beliefs because of a desire to. It's the same as the conspiracy theory stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and the same as what they talked about in all the Scientology documentaries where once it's like the foot in the door thing. Like once you're already like in for a penny, in for a pound kind of thing. Like I'd rather agree to these things that maybe I'm not 100% on
like the path
than
of
be
least resistance.
excluded. And especially if the group is more on exclusion than inclusion, you're going to want to do everything to feel like, I mean, everything fucking reinforces itself, you know? It's like there's so much fear. Fear drives like this kind of stuff. And it's really fucked up.
Do you think that it's also the case that maybe people that tend to get really into gaming are more isolated in the real life world? Or do you think that's just a stereotype that is not really reflected in the data? I don't know the answer
I
to
think
that.
it's hard to maybe not in the beginning, but in the same way you can say somebody who likes to go visit slot machines or gamble is isolated from other people. If the things that they're choosing to do isolate them, is it that
and it's like you said, it's self-reinforcing.
Or is it that, it's self-reinforcing. So I think that's it. It's like maybe not in the beginning, but they're getting, and it really, video games do the same thing that like slot machines do. Like it's reinforcing. They want you to play, make it just hard enough. You lose a little bit, then you come back and you play more. It's like, and you got to get the next one. It's like designed to do that. Gives you that.
Yeah.
It keeps you, I don't know, keeps you addicted. It's like there are addictive aspects to gaming. And
right. And then you may be exposed to certain behavior and points of view that you wouldn't otherwise. And then you would be more inclined to be persuaded to agree if you want to maintain your social position.
Right. Exactly.
Bummer.
I know. But I thought that part about the identity fusion was so interesting.
Totally.
You can kind of think about, I even thought about that in terms of people whose identity become, somebody on the challenge or somebody where it becomes hard to separate that and and then it makes it so everything that you are is riding on this one thing.
Yes.
And if that community in any way lets you down, it feels like you're alone. It feels like you have no one.
Yeah.
And that can be said for religion, for,
Well, and we've had a reduction in the opportunities to interact with the community.
Good point. That is
yeah.
a good, yep.
And so then when you finally find one, you don't want to alienate yourself or the team or whatever. And so, man, that is a real crappy story.
Yep. And it even said that in the article. It talked about how this provides community at a time when, and what they noticed in the people who have this more, what do they call it? They said it wasn't all gamers, of course.
Sure.
It's toxic. They called it toxic gaming, like something like that. Toxic gaming, I think. And, and that was not everybody in the community, of course, but this.
I'll tell you what everybody in the community could benefit from, and that is some delicious food from HelloFresh.
Absolutely.
That is a universal. Yeah, and that could bring us all together because we'll just sit around talking about it. I had the best meal ever.
Oh, tell me.
It's those pork taquitos. I can't quit talking about them.
I love them. Yeah.
I can't wait till you get them because you're going to be like, Suze, you know what? No wonder you can shut up about them because they're so freaking good. It's so delicious. But all of their recipes are wonderful. And I love how they do seasonal stuff. So, you can get like the old Oktoberfest situation on the go for the fall. They try to do like fall inspired stuff. And because it is fall, and they have quick and easy meals. So they're like 20-minute recipes, like when Lincoln gets home from school, the last thing I want to do is like, spend
when I get home from anywhere, the last thing I want to do is any of that.
Yes. So you can it works with your ever-changing schedule. You can change your delivery day. You can change pretty much everything. It's all flexible, and it's so convenient, very easy to do, and they're freaking delicious, which is really all that I care about. All the ingredients are delivered right to you along with the recipe, and so you don't have to think about it. Go to HelloFresh.com/BrainCandy65 and use code BrainCandy65 for 65% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/BrainCandy65 and use code BrainCandy65 for 65% off plus free shipping. Okay.
Yum. Now you're making me hungry. Also, I highly recommend saving the recipes because if you are like, what do I make tonight? Just go through your
You can recreate it.
Recipe book, and they're
Yes,
so good,
do that.
Mimi. And
Problem solved.
Eli is such a good chef, and so whenever like I feel like taking over the responsibility of cooking, I do this, and every time he's like, "Oh, this is amazing," and then I feel like I'm on par.
Yeah.
With his
Well,
cooking.
you are. Because
I know,
all
it's
anybody
great.
wants is a yummy meal.
It's different. Okay, so what I was going to say before about like the hashtag not all gamers is that one thing that they did notice, and this I think is a very important thing to like kind of highlight and talk about, is that the people who had those toxic gaming traits didn't have another community where they belong, didn't feel like they belonged. This was the community.
That bumps me out. Right.
So, I was thinking about when we were talking about the Boy Scouts and how there was kind of this feeling of like, well, bad things are going to happen, but a lot of good things happen with it.
Yeah.
And this feels like I just don't like things like that. How like there's
You
the
don't want it to be
double-edged
a
sword
trait.
thing.
Yeah.
The thing where it's like there's so many good, and then there are these negatives too. Because I think about that book Super Better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, of course
Jane
her name's
McGonigal.
slipping. Jane McGonigal, thank you.
Yeah.
And how helpful gaming is. And I remember when my mom had her accident, and she could not stop Googling her own frickin' symptoms. And I was like, Mom, that's not going to be very helpful. Maybe we need to distract the brain or like give the brain like another little task to like look at and look over here and da-da-da. And how it helped. I like set her up with Best Fiends. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And it was really helpful to kind of like distract her mind. And
Well, sorry to interrupt, but that's
Yeah.
Is one of the things I really like that you talk about. You know how like we and most people focus a lot these days on like being present and being mindful and like living in the moment. And one time you said to me, yeah, but like when things are really bad, you should not be in the moment.
No, get the heck out of there.
Yeah. And that was
Get
like a
somewhere else.
revelation to me because, it's so focused on now that like be in the moment. And you were like, well, yeah, but if it's terrible, you should maybe think about like a future when it'll be better. And,
Right.
like,
the people who like walk on coals, or like anybody who's doing something, or like anybody who's gotten a ceremonial like tattoo or anything like that. You do not stay in that moment. You're the whole point is get your mind somewhere else. Like go
like you're in
into
control
a trance.
of your mind and you can use it to your advantage. And that is such a
Absolutely.
good thing to remind people because the last thing I want to be is in the moment when I'm suffering.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and games are great for that. In fact, one of the I'll never forget the study that Jane McGonigal talks about in her book with the video game that they developed for people who were burn victims.
Yeah.
They found that they had a higher reduction in pain or greater reduction in pain playing a video game where they were in a snowy world and like had a task of like collecting snow and snowballs and stuff than with morphine.
Whoa.
It was stronger than morphine to handle the most painful
That
pain
is
somebody
remarkable.
can experience.
Well, and if you think about it, that is what freaking Lamaze is during labor. You're focused on your breathing instead of on the nightmare that's happening in your vagina area. But that is what you're doing, you're thinking about something else to distract
Speaking
you.
of which, I just saw, and this is like on Halloween theme, so I'll share it. I just saw, and this probably gets posted every year. Somebody does this, where like a midwife place like a birthing center will do the Halloween pumpkins with the mouth the size of like dilation. Have you seen this?
No.
Oh my gosh, Suze, it's crazy. And you could see what like 10 centimeters dilated actually looks like.
Tell me.
Like,
do it right now. Like with your hands or something, not with your vagina.
like enormous, like the whole pumpkin.
Jesus H.
Yeah, I'm gonna find this picture and I'm gonna show it to you.
That is not okay.
Dilation.
Childbirth is not natural.
Pumpkins.
I'm going to stick with that. There's nothing natural about having a baby.
Oh my god, it's such a funny.
I know. People hate it too. Like women get really upset when I say stuff like that.
There's nothing natural. Okay. Share your screen with me. Did you share it?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Look at this. Look at those holes.
God!
The stages of dilation.
That is hideous.
Look at that, it's huge.
Wow.
Yeah, the human body, man.
Oh my God.
The human body really is incredible.
I mean,
and
is,
so
but...
resilient, you know? I was thinking like, I don't know, thinking about my ankle or something the other day and how fast like bodies get put back together. Because I really had this idea in my mind, how the fuck will my foot ever bend again? Like there's no way it's going to work with how it felt before. And then your body just like puts it back together. And my brother, who's a firefighter, said he I don't know what was happening where like, I think I was asking him, I'm like, should I go to the doctor about this? He's like, your body has a pretty good way of telling you if it's like severe enough. Yeah. And like, it'll feel like every single alarm is going off in your body. Like, I need help now.
Yeah.
And if it's not at that, he's like, if you're just like questioning, like, should I, your body's pretty resilient.
Yeah, because you can't overthink it, right?
This is like from the guy who maybe doesn't want a lot of calls that day. So,
like,
I take this with
Sarah.
a grain of salt, but that was, I always think about that.
Oh my
like,
God.
Man, our bodies are really resilient. And
I can't believe that. I cannot. No wonder, like, labor hurts so much opening up like that. Good grief. I'll tell you what's a lot better than labor pains, and that is having a great bank, which is Chime. In fact, they were just named the #1 most loved banking app, and a lot of banking apps are awful, so Chime has sorted it out for you. They have fee-free overdrafts up to $200, and no annual fees, no large security deposits or credit checks to apply. It's money can't buy happiness, but a pretty good banking app and a bank might just do it. Chime to the rescue. See for yourself why Chime is so loved at chime.com/braincandy. That's chime.com/braincandy. Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Early access to direct deposit funds depends on payer. SpotMe eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. See chime.com/spotme. Chime was the 2021 #1 most downloaded banking app in the U.S. according to Apptopia.
Okay, one more story. This is... it's funny because all these things can fit into like a creepy category. I read an article in Vice on online harassment and why it's so awful and what we're doing to treat this.
All right, let's hear it. I could use some help.
Okay, first of all, I did not know this. I think we think of online harassment as like, I don't know, the same thing as that teenager who's getting bullied, where it's just like relentless and it's from, like a bunch of sources, but it doesn't necessarily have to, it could be like you own a business and somebody leaves a bad review and you're trying to get that review off. And then this person's like, I don't know, over and over with a bad review. Or one of the people that they interviewed for this story was a podcaster who had a podcast, and then I think she was with maybe broke up with her ex-husband or something like that, and then the ex-husband, new girlfriend, like posted their legal documents of like child custody stuff online. And, she was getting like the online harassment. Oh, that was it. They started a fake account. Her ex-boyfriend and his like new girlfriend like started a fake account and then was like, leaving messages and comments and things like that. Just like one person. And, she was like, this is my business. I have to like be online. And it made her feel like every time she goes online, she's going to be,
I know that feeling. I'm sure you do too.
Yes. And I was really surprised to hear that 4 in 10 Americans report that they've experienced some sort of online harassment.
Oh my.
That's
what the
more
hell
than
are you people doing out there?
Isn't that more than you like? I thought I knew that I have experienced
of
that.
Course,
I mean,
yeah.
like we are. Even when I read reviews, I don't like. I'm like, I'm being harassed. But no,
I'm being harassed.
I'm not saying that. Don't worry, you guys are fine. But I didn't think that in the different ways that this could, like how this could show up, and I think more people have this experience than I.
So it'll be like somebody on Facebook, and they'll say who they're voting for or something, and then they'll get people saying like that you're an idiot or whatever.
Yeah, it could be any sort of
like personal attack.
Yeah, like a personal attack. But what it does is it causes these feelings of paranoia and also this very biological reaction of like rage and like feeling of needing to defend ourselves. But what it is a threat that we can't see, which the brain does not do well with.
Okay.
Because its job is to get rid of threats, and its job is to eliminate threats. So if this threat comes from a social platform where you are putting your stuff out there and it's like on display for the public, like we all do on social media and whatever, and then it's judged by these I don't know, like your peers, like anonymous people around you, what it does is it turns everybody into a potential enemy. Your brain can't, because it doesn't know where the threat is coming from, because it's not like the person who was mean to, like, I know exactly who was threatening me in 6th grade. I won't say her name because I will not call her out. But I know exactly who, like, who my mind can point the finger and like know where this feeling is coming from.
Yeah, this is a threat from this person.
Yes.
Okay.
When there is this feeling of everybody's against you, it turns everyone into a potential enemy, and that has really damaging effects. That's what can cause isolation.
Yeah.
That's what causes depression. That can cause feelings of like exclusion and loneliness. And really what they're saying is it has the same effects. Like online harassment has really the same physiological and psychological effects that other forms of trauma have. And that in order to treat it, you have to do the same sort of things. It's like a trauma treatment.
Dang.
Right?
Like what? What do you do?
So, well, one of the results of trauma, and one of the things that can happen is emotional dysregulation. So it's like mood swings. It's really like being, it's kind of like that fight or flight, that control center in your brain. I've had it described as a smoke alarm. Like we have this smoke alarm in our mind that's supposed to sense when there's danger and when there's something to report. And, if the smoke alarm is dysregulated, if it's too sensitive, it'll go off all the time. There's fire, there's fire, fire.
Right.
And just like with a smoke alarm, when all that fire, it's going off, you have to like, hang on, let me like calm down. Like, everything's fine. You know, we like open the window and clear out the air. It's like a whole thing. And in a way, we kind of have to do a similar thing internally. We have to, recognize when the smoke alarm is going off when there's no fire. And then we have to re-regulate the system. And so the trauma-informed treatment is a lot of like EMDR or CBT, but it's a top-down and bottom-up approach. So top-down is like getting your thoughts right. Like, not everybody is against you. This is just, and helping like the person understand, you know, that the actions that people are taking have more to do with them than it has to do with you. And so understanding top down, that's like the thoughts in your head to then help control the body. And then bottom up is regulating the body, telling the body in the space that it's in, you're safe, you're okay, there is no threat. And we do that by grounding techniques or yoga or breathing or meditation or listening to music or anything that engages the senses. So you need kind of that top-down and bottom-up approach for any sort of trauma treatment to help with that emotional dysregulation.
That was very helpful, Sarah.
Oh, thanks. You can hear more of this therapy style talk on my new podcast, This Changes Everything, with Therapy Jeff. See, when I started the podcast with him, I was like, there's a different tone that I use when I get into therapy mode. And,
it is. It's
maybe
so cute.
you said that it was like,
I don't know if I did, but I do know that it's true, and I like it.
There's definitely a different one. So
it's great because then I know who I'm talking to.
Yeah, you're right. That was
It's
Therapy
handy.
Sarah. I put on my little hat and...
But
see, no identity fusion here. That was my therapy self and
and
my
really, that same technique can be applied for just stress in general, right?
Yes.
Like anxiety. It doesn't have to just be like if someone's mean to you online.
Right. It's any sort of, that is a response to any kind of that's like trauma-informed therapy. It could help with anything where if we feel dysregulated, you know, even in what we went through in the pandemic and still going through for a lot of people is this anticipatory grief, this like grief of something that like, that's kind of like an enemy we can't see, that even gave us some of those, like, I don't know, kind of like trauma symptoms or those things that just make you feel a little more on edge. It's some of the symptoms included depression, suicidal ideation, and panic attacks.
Dang.
Yeah.
Being online is not for the faint of heart.
No. It's terrible. Well, I feel like the second two stories are kind of linked in a way because it's that double-edged sword. There are so many good parts.
Yeah.
I mean, I love our online community so much, and like our Patreon group and like our book club and documentary club. So great. But I think what's so important is to understand those different identities, that social and individual one, and how to maintain like strong connections with people who know an authentic version of you and like are unconditionally accept and love that authentic version of you. Just can be like one person, like I got Seuss.
Yeah. Though I always struggle with like when somebody says something to me online that is either demonstrably false or like I know they're wrong about it. It's very tempting for me to lay into them because of my certainty about my rightness.
Yeah.
And it is totally pissing in the wind. Like there's no point
100%
to doing that. But it tempts me every time.
Understanding what their intention is helps to get rid of that feeling.
Yeah,
because when you can understand that they like probably didn't say, I want to make Susie feel really mad right now. And if they did say that, then fuck them. I'm not going to waste my time with that. Like, you know, But man, does it, you have to like have personal boundaries and recognize like where your limits are and what you can handle. Cause you can handle way more than I can. Like, I don't know how you do it. You're like, oh my gosh, you're so good at like, even I think like defending yourself when you should and when versus just ignoring it and letting people. It's so cute. There's this whole family of squirrels that's like playing tag outside
wildlife.
my window right now. It's really lovely. So.
I was thinking last time when I got distracted by the hail or whatever, I'm like, I really need to control myself. Like, you don't have to look at what's tempting.
No, I can't help it. I changed my angle and changed my view, and now I got like squirrels playing in the trees. I didn't talk to you about the little birds who just showed up.
Like
it
Snow
felt like
White
it was my
over there.
grandma. It really is beautiful.
Yeah.
So.
You would make a like back when I met you and you had black hair, you would have made a really cute Snow White, like at Disneyland or something.
Yeah, why didn't I ever do that for Halloween?
Yeah, you could have done that.
I could have with the red bow, and it could have been like all
adorable.
Like, man,
and like a nice red lip. I can see you doing this.
Love it.
I'm surprised you've never gone back to that hair color.
I have nightmares actually where I dye my hair black, and then I wake up in a panic because I'm like, what have I done?
Shut
the process up. The process to get it blonde again.
I remember
so
that.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we were in Brazil, you were in the middle phase where you even warned me. You're like, just so you know, I'm trying to get out of my black hair. And it was, it was like a reddish strawberry blonde.
Yeah. I mean,
it
just
was
know
pretty,
that you are
though.
committed to that. If you are going box black.
Yeah.
It wasn't even dark brown. I was black.
What do you think's a bigger commitment? That box black or bangs?
Box black.
Wow.
Yeah. Takes longer to get.
That's a good point.
And you're going to have to fry your hair to get it out of there. Because you got to lift all of those, like color deposits these molecules into your hair. And lightening it like comes away. And it like eats the little molecules away. Yeah. And in order to do that, you got to like take things out of the hair, which leaves a lot of little holes. I honestly like cannot believe that it works the way it does, how we can do that our hair doesn't just like all fall off.
Well,
it's really
for yourself.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. But okay, I won't pressure you, but it did look so pretty when it was black. I do love it.
Thanks.
It always looks pretty. You're the worst because everything you do. I've never seen you where I was like, whoa, what's happening? Every look you do.
I can send you some first thing in the morning pics that'll have you.
I have seen you plenty in the first thing in the morning. Shut up. All right, winding. Let's wind it. I mean, happy Halloween.
Yeah.
And I hope you get a lot of fun-size candy bars now that I agree that they are superior to full-size candy bars.
Woo!
If you had to do like one full-size, though, what would you choose?
One full-size?
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be a funny answer because M&M's, but it doesn't even count.
M&Ms.
No, I know that's terrible. Like the peanut ones. I was on a kick for a while. I love a peanut M&M so much. No, full size. I'm gonna go Kit Kat.
Good choice.
I
would
like
probably
it.
do Twix,
but
I love a Kit Kat too.
I have not had it yet, but I'm about to dive into the Halloween bag right now. Probably as you're listening to this. I have been so looking forward to a fun-size Butterfinger because
I love those.
Perfect ratio of chocolate to.
That is the correct answer.
Butterfinger, whatever.
Butter to finger.
Butter to
That's
finger.
Hilarious. Pavlov. Whoa.
Oh man!
Expose today on
literally
the show.
Cutting holes in dogs' esophaguses and letting the food just drop out. Like, really, they should do a horror film on him.
Yeah.
Why haven't they done that? This article came out in 2014.
Wow.
The Drool article.
The Drool article.
That's
Dang.
in the New Yorker.
New Yorker, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
it's real, and it's available for free right now. Like, I got to read the whole thing without logging
paywall?
in. So yes, and it's really, really good by Michael Spector. Then we talked about toxic game culture.
Yikes.
Yes. Exclusion over inclusion. Ugh.
And then
else?
online harassment. But the real spooky part was how big your vagina gets when you dilate. Yikes,
Right.
yikes,
Everybody
yikes.
Google that. That's it. Men listening, you lovely, lovely guys, just Google that and just like have a moment to feel for the women in your life.
I love the Joe Coy bit where he talks about how he watched his wife give birth and how, the vagina on that day is so disgusting. And then I loved it because then he was like, women are like transformers, like the day after it's just like back. And it's like back the way it started, which I love that he did that because sometimes I think people like young guys like on the challenge would act like you're damaged goods. You're just
Dummies.
They're dum-dums. Yeah.
They're so dumb.
But it's miraculous what goes on down there. And then
Unbelievable.
unbelievable. 3 cheers for the human body.
Shout
Okay.
out to the human body.
We have Christmas ornaments. Brain candy Christmas
that is
ornaments.
Right. Everybody, come on.
I know it's
you need
Halloween,
a
but
I was reading about Britney Spears, and I almost said, you need a Britney Spears ornament.
Oh, we
Well,
do.
you probably need that too.
That's true.
But we don't have that. We have a brain candy ornament.
the puzzle's out. The apartment pants are out.
Those are so comfy. The apartment pants, soup's comfy.
So cute.
And
anyway,
just like little insider tip, size up.
okay.
on the apartment
Oh
pants.
yeah,
They're-
I noticed that.
They're comfy. They're comfy, and you want them a little bit on the baggier
I
side.
agree.
Yeah, I sized up, and I was very happy I did.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a spooky day. Bye.
Bye.